Welcome to the New York Now podcast, a modern wholesale market for retailers and specialty buyers seeking diversity and discovery. Gathering twice a year in America's design capital, New York City, it's where buyers and designers unearth a refreshed and dedicated collection of eclectic lifestyle products.
Hi, New York Now podcast listeners. My name is Amy Lowenberg, and I'm the Retail Relations and Partnership Development Manager for New York Now. Today, I'm talking with Michelle Beshaw from the Brooklyn Museum. Michelle's retail story started as both the manager and buyer for the Enchanted Forest in Soho, a gallery of beasts and books and handmade toys celebrating the spirit of animals, old stories, and the child within. After a decade, she moved to Kate's Papery, a past but well-remembered New York City iconic luxury destination for paper, stationery, custom printing, and all things celebrating our life milestones. Currently, as the merchandising manager and buyer for the Brooklyn Museum, Michelle is able to share her experience in purchasing and product development, design, visual merchandising, planning, and retail management. She's enthused by all things fun and unique and greatly inspired by the designers and makers that she meets along the way and the stories that they tell. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course.
I think it would be good to share that we've actually known each other for years.
Yes.
Our history goes back to our buying days at Kate's Papery. I know that your talents run very deep, and I love that you've landed in the Brooklyn Museum, so they are very lucky to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be there.
Yeah, so let's jump right in, okay? Why don't you tell us a bit about the Brooklyn Museum's mission and how you've had to shift your business these days?
That's a big question. I'm actually going to read the vision and our mission statement. They're very short. I mean, I know that there was a lot of thought that went into this. To create inspiring encounters with art that expand the ways we see ourselves, the world, and its possibilities. Our vision statement reads, where great art and courageous conversations are catalysts for a more connected, civic, and empathetic world.
I love that. I mean, we're in a pandemic, a recession, civil unrest. Courageous conversations are definitely a catalyst for a more empathetic world. It sounds like the Brooklyn Museum is right on point.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting time to be the Brooklyn Museum. I mean, we're in a moment that sort of strikes at all the things that we hold most dear and our core values. And
Well, I know that your relationships with your community is extremely important, obviously. So with so many different communication channels that are available to us, how are you guys staying connected these days?
in every possible way that we can find. I mean, we're fortunate that when this all hit, of course, we already have a website that's incredibly robust and a wonderful team of people who maintain that and who do our social media. So I know there was a lot of intense work that went into it to sort of shift gears and focus more on ways that people could connect with the museum remotely. And that's been sort of our focus too in the shop. For a while, we were just shut down. We
Right.
couldn't get anyone into the building to ship products. So even our website was inaccessible for a while. We just had to sort of close.
Like
But
many people.
yeah, but it did give us an opportunity to kind of look at everything that we're doing in a particular way and to look at the website and how can we make the website more accessible? How can we speak to more people? We were voracious listeners and gatherers of everything that everyone else was doing. I mean, our inboxes were full of people coming up with amazing ideas of how to reach out to their customers. So we paid a lot of attention to that. Still are.
Definitely an important step to take, I think, for any large institution where we've got such a large body of attendees, customers, clients. These are the people that we're working for. So why wouldn't we listen to what they have to say, right? I know we did that at Kate's quite a bit.
Yeah, and what they need, community is, we're a very community focused facing institution. It really is a big part of every conversation. So it makes sense.
It does make sense. I see how creative your website is. I came across Mad Libs the other day and I thought that was ingenious. I wasn't anticipating finding them, but I did. I know that you have a lot of events that have taken a little bit of a different turn now, obviously, because of sheltering in place and not being open. You actually have a virtual art history hour. Are you still doing those?
I know they have a lot of projects they've been doing. We've been doing virtual for Saturdays. As we get closer to opening, we're shifting our sort of operations toward planning out the safety of return and opening. We are still doing collaborating with a free food program that happens every Monday, where people can come and get food.
Wow.
And we've been including with that some of our exhibition catalogs, our older exhibition catalogs. So we're not just giving out food, but we're also giving out art with our
I
with
love
that.
that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, Brooklyn is a very tight community. Are you finding that you're getting people from all over for that? I would assume the need is very great right now. So,
The need is great. I've been sort of going in and taking out the books and making sure they get to the right place. But I was actually there the other day as people were starting to line up and they were starting to hand out the food. And I think what struck me most of all is that there's a beautiful space behind the museum that has picnic tables and trees and lots of room for people to spread out. Museum was really thoughtful to bring out as many chairs as they could find so that people waiting in line would have places to sit in the shade. And these are the kinds of things that I think I really appreciate in the projects that we do. There's an empathy about it, there's a thoughtfulness about what people really need.
well, it goes right back to your vision and your mission statement.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's so talking about chairs and having, spread out places for people to sit. Let's talk about safety guidelines a little bit because it sounds like you're obviously thinking about that for people who come on your Mondays. But as you move forward, at some point, you guys are going to be open. So I'm sure you guys are talking about how you're going to adjust your safety guidelines inside. Is there anything that you can perhaps share with us on that?
I know that they're doing really thoughtful and careful planning about exactly, based on state and city guidelines, exactly how many people can you have in a given space? How many square feet do you have to imagine for each individual person, whether it's 80 square feet or 100? I've heard numbers bandied around about how many people will be able to have in the shop, for instance, at any given time, including sales associates. So
Sure.
we'll be limiting the number of sales associates so we can maximize, of course, the number of visitors and guests and customers that are there. But they are coming up with very careful numbers about how many people can be in each gallery space. In each, it's a huge building, as you know. It's
Yes. It's a
this
beautiful
wonderful old
building.
Beaux-Arts building in Brooklyn, which is absolutely gorgeous and enormous. But we're really planning on probably, if anything, an over generous allocation of space per person so that people feel safe.
Absolutely. And it makes sense that you would do that. Let's have people feel safe and then we reassess on what kind of changes we can make, if any, are even needed.
Exactly. And we'll have plexiglass and rigorous cleaning schedules. Like you're likely to see people wandering around with disinfectant, and making sure that we really take care of keeping things as clean and safe as they can be.
Absolutely. Let's talk about merchandise a little bit. Let's shift this. So, shopping is obviously an emotional thing. Tell me about creating your assortments that reflect your programs and your exhibits.
We
So, you can discuss your thought process, your steps. I know you've got a variety of different entities that you get to play with.
A lot of entities, I mean, we're an encyclopedic museum, the second largest encyclopedic museum in New York City after the Met, which just means that we have an enormous range of sort of areas that the museum covers. We've got an African collection, we've got an Egyptian collection, we have an amazing decorative arts collection, we have an Asian collection, we have an Americas collection, we have a European collection. So we just, if you think of the shop as sort of being a place that reflects and shines light on all those different areas, it gives us a lot of opportunity. It's also, it can be challenging to do justice to all of those different areas without it seeming like a sort of chaos.
So, all of those areas don't have their own exhibit shop. Those are for your ongoing exhibits, if I'm not mistaken. Am I
Those
correct?
are our collections. Yeah,
Those
the
are your
collections that
collections.
we have.
And so then I would think that your museum shop, the one that's based in the front, would reflect your entire museum, but you obviously pay homage to any event that you're having, any special exhibit that you're having.
Yeah, I mean, often the exhibitions, if the expectation is that they're going to have a large audience, we'll have a special shop that we set up, a pop-up shop in the exhibition that we dedicate to merchandise just around that exhibition. But even in the main shop, then there will always be an area dedicated to what the major exhibitions in the museum are. It's a focus for us because at any given time, our business is so closely and related to those special exhibitions. I mean, if we're having a David Bowie exhibition, people will want to see nothing but David Bowie products until the day the exhibition closes, and then you have a hard time giving away that which can be a little bit challenging, getting the numbers just right. But it's fascinating as a merchant. I'd never worked in that kind of arena where you plan and plan and plan for a very specific event, and when it's over, it is over.
So you're in and then you're out. You just want to be done.
Ideally, yes, you are in and then you're out.
So then are you creating more of an exclusive type of product that could potentially sell out prior to the exhibit ending?
I mean, our hope is always that we have exactly the amount of product that we need to get to the last day and the last customer. As you know,
I
from your
do.
own experience, that's sort of, you can project, but there's always a bump at the beginning of an exhibition and there's always a bump at the end. So you hopefully plan for that. And more we are trying to create unique products specific to exhibitions.
Okay, so
Because
you're moving more into product development
absolutely.
than you traditionally were.
Yeah, I mean, we found our analysis in every case shows that the more closely a product aligns with the exhibition, the more volume we can expect to have on that product.
I think that makes sense. I mean, I know that I wanted my Bowie accessories when I saw the exhibit, so
Sure.
I'm your
Your
typical
exclusive
customer, I
record.
think.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. I mean, if I see, this is the thing that so much retail now is trying to get at, is making their sort of the shopping an experience, right? Everybody talks about it being experiential. And the lovely thing about a museum is that the experience is built in. We are an experience, and the shop is there to reflect and to build upon and to enhance and that experience. So the more closely our product relates to that experience that people are having, the better we do.
So that's an interesting little twist because in other organizations and institutions, you're looking to create that event,
Exactly.
right? So this is
Yeah.
built in. That's an interesting angle. I hadn't really thought about that. Do you have different customers or a different audience? Let's say per each exhibit. So are you thinking about that prior to filling your stores?
Yeah, we think about it, and there's the marketing team for the museum also does a lot of research about who the customer or who the visitor for a particular exhibit will be, and we have the great good fortune of having access to all of that data that they bring. And then, of course, we use our own analysis of what products always do well. I mean, you've always got to have a
Sure.
magnet and a mug and a T-shirt and then what
Sure.
is the question?
Isn't that the magic of being a merchant is you kind of know instinctually what product is going to move per concept or event or season simply based on your experience in the environment.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the fun part is always when you sort of take a risk on something and it turns out to be the thing that everybody just has to have, which I totally love.
Well, tell me about the last thing you took a risk on that was a number one hit. Putting you on the spot, Michelle.
Yeah, and well, I'll talk a little bit about the Frida Kahlo exhibit, which was certainly one of my favorites. And my Chad, who I work with, who is the director of merchandising, both of us, that's sort of one of our favorite shops that we've done. We made a decision early on that we were going to dedicate that shop to products actually made in Mexico. and not do a lot of sort of the Frida imagery that is so prevalent everywhere. Now we did some of that because you have to, but we did an enormous amount of Spanish colonial silver. We did actual Mexican textiles. It proved a bit of a challenge because it turns out that at that time getting product over the border from Mexico and to New York City was a slightly longer process than we thought. But once that product started coming in and we were working with partners, buyers in Mexico who were going out to these amazing folk artists and finding these things that Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, were heavily influenced by and had in their own collections. And we were able to sort of fill the shop with that kind of expression, while still, of course, having, prints, Frida Kahlo prints, and the exhibition catalog, which is always a big seller for any exhibition shop. I think it was a big risk for us not to sort of go with the obvious Frida Kahlo socks and Frida Kahlo, to kind of take that route where you can put her face on just about anything. And not that any of that's bad. I'm sure we would have sold that as well, but we chose not to, and it turned out to be really successful, really fun.
I think that's probably the key word is fun. And I would say that the Brooklyn Museum has a really unique vibe to it. So there's a bit of a twist. So it's got to be a challenge creating that one of a kind vibe that flows across all locations when you've got different exhibits going on and versus collections, but to still have that really amazing energetic vibe, which I definitely experience when I'm in the Brooklyn Museum.
Nice. Thank you.
I know that you've had some controversial exhibits. How have you dealt with the products for them?
Yeah, I mean, there haven't the Brooklyn Museum is known for some very controversial exhibits going way back. We've had a few exhibits that relate very specifically to sort of social justice issues. We had a legacy of lynching exhibit that was profoundly moving and struck a real nerve. I know for me and for most of the people who saw it. In those cases, we stayed pretty. I mean, in that particular case, anyway, we tried to really carefully choose some books and imagery, and we didn't. There was no mug. You're not going to do a magnet or a mug about the legacy of lynching, but there's some products that relate back to social justice in the '60s, and there's a Philadelphia Printworks, for instance, does some historical sorts of T-shirts and around Shirley Chisholm for president. I mean, you can kind of go in that direction and really find a historical perspective. But there were a lot of books. I think we tried to rely mostly on books.
That's probably one of your strongest categories, I would think.
It is. I mean, the exhibition catalogs are certainly our strongest selling product in any situation. And of all the places I've ever worked in retail, and I love this, books is our biggest category. If you put all the books together, the exhibition books with the ancillary books so yay books.
I know you could talk about that forever.
Yeah, I do love books, and that's sort of one of my core areas right now. So
Lovely. Well, it's always nicer when we're purchasing products that we actually really love too.
yes, yeah.
Are you guys working on anything now that you can tempt us with? Any?
We're I can certainly tempt.
Okay.
It can't be terribly specific. We have a lot of things are up in the air, and I know that the exhibitions team has been really engaged in reworking some things because we want to make sure that the bigger exhibitions that we're expecting to do in the next few years, will be able to have the volume of people attend that they deserve. But the one that we're most involved with right now is probably about a year out, and we're starting to develop product, and we're all very excited about it and hoping that there will be opportunities around that to try some new things.
Well, thinking about something a year out is, I think a lot of people are in that place right now just because of where we are in the immediate. So it's smart, but but how lovely that you actually have now built-in time and you don't have to work in the immediate.
For sure. I mean, for product development, and especially the kind of product development we're looking to do, a year is really like just perfect.
It's a good amount of time,
We
and
often
who knows what kind of challenges you may run into now with availability and timing and the destination this is traveling from.
Yes, all of that. I mean, I will say that even in this period when people are working remotely and there've been a lot of obstacles, that the vendors that we do work with have been phenomenal, very generous, very responsive, which was the thing I was worried about. It's like if I was worried that if I wrote an email, it's like, is someone going to be able to answer it? Are people set up to do this? But the speed and sort of agility of people figuring out how to move their entire businesses into a remote world was really fantastic. And our vendors, kudos to them. They've been amazing.
Well, I would think that you too have to work with your vendors, so I'm sure they're applauding you too, right? We're all kind of acquiescing right now and figuring out how we can continue to sustain our businesses.
Yeah, it's a challenging time, and we know that vendors rely on us to do the things that they need from us.
Right, right. In a perfect world, which it sounds odd to say right now, what are some of your tools, your favorite tools and resources that you like to use?
I mean, I'm a big believer in casting a very large net. I love all the electronic tools. We love Instagram. Instagram is so dominant right now in terms of small businesses and community business, able to have a large footprint in the Instagram space that maybe they don't have in the actual world. So we look at Instagram, we look at all of the electronic media. We spend a lot of time looking at things that come to us. I think this is the one thing that I've learned at the Brooklyn Museum almost more than any place else I've ever been, is that vendors will find you, especially the ones that are not in the usual sort of channels that we're used to going to and that we rely on, but really dedicating yourself to looking at everything and sort of being open to every possible way that you might see something, whether it comes to you through an email or it comes to you through something you see on the street or you see something at a demonstration, and being able to track that thing down. Inspiration comes from so many different places.
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think we are also in very inspirational times as well.
we
There's
certainly are.
nothing but creativity coming out of these times, and in challenge and in strife, there's growth and there's change.
There's also a little extra. I think that one of the things I'm appreciating is there's a little extra time. I mean, in my general life, much as I try to look at all the product that comes into my inbox, now I'm finding that I can look at all the other things that come into my inbox. And I've been able to, sort of find some webinars, some that New York Now has done that have been phenomenal.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and a few other places as well. I mean, there's so much opportunity now online. It's a huge boon for all of us to start creating that content. Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, I think our learning has continued in ways that at least I was surprising myself.
Yeah, 4 months ago, how many people knew what Zoom was?
I know.
And now it's a part of our everyday vernacular.
It is. The
It's
question is, do you want to Zoom or actually use a regular phone? Which,
exactly.
I don't know why we're going to do that anymore. Let me ask you a funny question about museums too, because I know you and I know who you are, and I know that you love the Brooklyn Museum. So let's just put that aside for a moment, and let me ask you, what are some of the other museums that you like to spend time in?
Oh wow. Well, I've always been a big fan of the Museum of Modern Art. It's sort of the magical world for me to be able to go there, and I certainly love the Met as well.
Should I ask if there's a museum that you haven't seen yet that's on your bucket list?
There's one right in New York, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it because it has a collection of toys. And my retail career started in toys. So it's the Museum of the City of New York, which is up in East Harlem, which is a place I taught a summer program once there, not at the museum, but up in East Harlem. And I have never been to the Museum of the City of New York, and it is definitely on my bucket list.
All right. Well, I can absolutely say that once we open up again, I will take that trip with you.
Terrific. There are plenty of international museums too. There's also a museum of automata in New Jersey that I've heard of that I would like to visit at some point.
Interesting.
Yeah. I love museums. I love little tiny museums. There's a museum in Vermont of everyday objects that I've seen online, and I would love to go there too. You know, it's in an old barn.
That's a really interesting description because I would say that when I've seen your home, I see these little areas of objects and ephemeral items that I think I've taken a lot of photographs in your home as well because I've been so inspired by just how artistic it is and how creative.
Thank you. I mean, you know, my other life is object theater, so
Yes, I do.
I do have a sort of obsession with interesting objects.
So I think you're in the perfect place because I think that a museum gift shop, whether it's an exhibit gift shop or a pop-up or your standard, needs to have exciting objects. So it feels like you're in the perfect role.
Yeah, and storytelling objects. I think that's the other part about,
Yes.
I mean, all of retail is looking to tell a story, but particularly at museums, you know, we're really looking to sort of tell the story of the history of a collection or an exhibition in a particular way through products, and not just to tell the story, but to expand the story, you know, to really, as someone put it recently, we don't want to just sort of tell the story of the canon, we want to explode the canon.
So I guess in closing, I can share that what I've picked up from this conversation is that the Brooklyn Museum is full of listeners and gatherers, that you partake in courageous conversations, and that you like to cast very large nets and you tell the story.
I would only add to that, you know, we are Brooklyn made, we are Brooklyn supported, we are dedicated to Brooklyn. And I'm so proud of our Brooklyn in these times for stepping up to the moment. And I'm so proud of the Brooklyn Museum in these times for stepping up to the moment.
Absolutely. Well, have I missed anything else that you'd like to share? I feel like you just put a lovely little cherry on top there.
No, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you always.
What is the best way to connect with you and the Brooklyn Museum?
So our website, if you go to the Brooklyn Museum website, there's a shop page. And if you go to the FAQs in the shop page, it does tell you if you're interested in submitting a product, how to submit a product. My request is always to put in the subject field product submission and what it is, because I often do look at things and then want to go back and search for them, and everybody, you know, and especially to call out if you're a Brooklyn vendor, a Brooklyn artist. We are really looking for you right now, if that's who you are.
That's wonderful. And I would tell you that a large swath of our audience are Brooklyn bound. So,
Excellent.
okay, you New York Now Brooklyn bound people, I think you need to hit up the Brooklyn Museum if you haven't already.
Spread the word.
Spread the word. Michelle, a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for taking this time with us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Amy. Always lovely to talk to you.
Talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the New York Now podcast. Make sure to tune in weekly for engaging and insightful conversations touching on the most relevant topics facing our community today. Visit NewYorkNow.com to learn more about our market and how you can join in on the conversation.